The greatest mystery of humanity for nearly half a century, the WOW signal of 1977, may have just revealed its true origin, and it is nothing like we ever imagined. On August 15th, 1977, the Big Ear radio telescope in Ohio captured a signal lasting 72 seconds, so powerful that the scientist who logged it could only write a single word on the printout. Wow. That moment sparked countless UFO theories, but for almost 50 years, no one could explain where it came from. Now, scientist Avi Loeb has suddenly released a shocking claim. The WOW signal may have been transmitted from 3I Atlas, the massive interstellar object now entering our solar system. If that is true, then we not only once heard a call from beyond, but we are about to come face to face with the sender of that signal. But will this be a peaceful encounter, or the beginning of a disaster humanity has never been prepared for? To revisit the WOW signal, we need to go back to 1977 to understand why this signal has been regarded as the most convincing extraterrestrial candidate in history. On the night of August 15th that year, the Big Ear radio telescope at Ohio State University accidentally picked up a signal that stunned the entire scientific community. It lasted exactly 72 seconds, matching the time Big Ear could listen to a single point in the sky as Earth rotated. On the data printout, astronomer Jerry Amon circled the sequence 6EQJ5 and wrote a single short word: WOW. And with that, the WOW signal was born. What made this signal so remarkable was that it was narrow-band, extremely strong, and located near the frequency of 1420 megahertz, the emission line of hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, often considered by scientists as the common language if a civilization wanted to send out a greeting. With these characteristics, the WOW signal instantly became the leading candidate for the hypothesis of an extraterrestrial transmission. But the excitement soon gave way to obsession, because that signal never repeated. For decades, countless follow-up campaigns were launched, from the VLA in New Mexico to Meta at Harvard, but all returned empty. That turned the WOW signal into a double mystery, strong enough to suggest someone is out there, yet too fleeting to prove. Natural explanations were repeatedly proposed, from hydrogen clouds, reflections from artificial satellites in orbit, to scintillation effects in the interstellar medium. But every idea had holes, and so for nearly half a century, the WOW signal has hovered between science and legend, becoming the very symbol of SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, invoked in films, books, and countless UFO theories. But the story does not end there. Nearly 50 years later, scientists are now facing another cosmic enigma, an interstellar object, only the third ever recorded after Oumuamua and Borisov. Its name is 3I Atlas, and it was none other than astronomer Avi Loeb who put forward a hypothesis that sent shockwaves through the scientific community: the sky coordinates of the WOW signal in 1977 almost perfectly overlap with the point of origin of 3I Atlas. Specifically, when the Big Ear telescope detected the WOW signal, it came from coordinates right ascension 291 degrees, declination negative 27 degrees in the constellation Sagittarius. This is one of the most dense and complex regions of the Milky Way. Nearly half a century later, when scientists traced the trajectory of 3I Atlas backward, its position in 1977 was calculated to be at right ascension, 295 degrees, declination negative 19 degrees. If you are not familiar with astronomical coordinates, think of it this way. The distance between these 2 points is only about 16 times the apparent width of the full moon placed side by side in the sky. In a universe that spans 360 degrees, for the two strangest phenomena, a mysterious radio signal and an anomalous interstellar object, to come from such a narrow region is profoundly suspicious. Avi Loeb even gave a number. The probability that this is just coincidence is about 0.6%. That is less than 1 in 100. And when we look back, the WOW signal was unlike any natural emission ever known. While Atlas displays a list of not like a comet properties, that 0.6% suddenly becomes a chilling reminder. Maybe this was no coincidence. Now try to piece the two fragments together. In 1977, humanity heard a powerful signal, lasting 72 seconds, broadcast at the hydrogen frequency, the common language that any civilization would recognize. And then, nearly half a century later, a colossal interstellar object suddenly arrives in the solar system from that very same region. If the WOW signal was a greeting, then 3i Atlas may be the sender. And this time, instead of sending radio waves from afar, it is stepping directly into Earth's backyard. Another detail that makes the hypothesis linking the WOW signal to 3i Atlas so frightening is the question of energy. When astronomers traced Atlas's position back to 1977, the year the WOW signal was detected, they calculated that the object was roughly 600 astronomical units away. In other words, about 600 times the distance from Earth to the Sun. That is an enormous span, farther than the outer edge of the Oort cloud. So for a radio signal coming from that distance to still reach Big Ear on Earth with the strength of the WOW signal, the transmitter would have needed a power output of at least 0.5 to 2 gigawatts. That number may sound dry, but here's the comparison. 2 gigawatts is the output of a modern nuclear reactor on Earth. In other words, to create the WOW signal from 600 astronomical units away, you would need a transmitter with the energy, infrastructure of an entire major city. For nature, this is virtually impossible. Celestial bodies like comets, planets, or even neutron stars cannot emit a narrow, focused, and powerful signal tuned precisely to the hydrogen frequency. But for an advanced technology, entirely feasible. A transmitter deliberately engineered, running on industrial-scale energy, could easily produce exactly what we call the WOW signal. So if 3i Atlas really was the source, then in 1977 humanity may have already heard a direct voice from an extraterrestrial technology. And now, that object is no longer fixed at 600 astronomical units. It is moving inward, straight into the solar system, on a path toward us. Until now, most theories surrounding the WOW signal have treated it as a greeting, a deliberate message sent out with intent. But there is another perspective that shatters this idea. It was not a message at all, but a radar pulse sweeping across the solar system. Imagine Atlas's technology as a giant radar station drifting between the stars. Instead of transmitting to communicate, it emits a concentrated beam of energy, just as humans use radar to scan the oceans for submarines or sweep the skies for aircraft. And on that summer night in 1977, the Big Ear telescope in Ohio may simply have fallen into its path. This explains why the WOW signal lasted exactly 72 seconds. It was the time Atlas's radar beam swept across Earth. No message, no encoding, just a burst of raw energy cutting through space. But the more frightening question lies in intent. If this really was radar, then it was not a random flash. It was surveying the solar system. And when it spotted a small blue planet lying in the Goldilocks zone, the region capable of supporting life, did Atlas mark Earth as a target? Some researchers suggest that after 1977, Atlas may have altered its velocity, accelerating on its way inward. That fits the idea that the object is not an inert chunk of ice, but a system capable of detecting, analyzing, and responding. If this is true, then humanity 50 years ago did not realize it was being scanned. The WOW signal was not a gift. It was reconnaissance data. When it comes to 3I Atlas, scientists have been baffled from the very first day it appeared, because every one of its characteristics runs against what a natural comet should be. If the WOW signal sowed suspicion that this might be a messenger from extraterrestrial intelligence, then its spectral data only deepened that sense of unease. Nearly 50 years later, scientists once again faced a new enigma from the cosmos, an interstellar object, only the third ever recorded after Oumuamua and Borisov. Its name is 3I Atlas. First, Atlas shines with an unusually vivid green color. This effect is typically seen in carbon-rich comets, when dicarbon molecules are released and fluoresce under sunlight. Yet spectral readings show Atlas is almost depleted of carbon. Other words, it lacks the material to glow green, but still blazes brightly in space. A paradox never seen before. Then came a more startling clue. Analyses from the VLT in Chile revealed that Atlas's surrounding coma contains an abnormally high level of nickel, yet almost no iron. This defies natural law. In every comet ever recorded, nickel and iron always appear together in a stable ratio. To see nickel without iron makes Atlas look more like a product of metallurgical refining than a natural block of cosmic ice. Its orbit is just as bizarre. Instead of being disturbed by the immense gravity of Jupiter or Saturn like all other bodies, Atlas charges forward with near-perfect precision, as if guided by an invisible navigation system. And the most chilling anomaly, Atlas does not behave like a natural comet. Icy bodies nearing the sun usually wobble, erupt chaotically, sometimes shatter. But Atlas remains steady, stable, venting gas in a smooth and regulated flow, as if it were a machine designed to maintain perfect equilibrium. This paradox has led to a bold hypothesis. Perhaps Atlas carries the traces of industrial alloy production. Some scientists do not rule out that the nickel in its coma may be waste material, the byproduct of some industrial activity, such as metal processing, welding, or even fabricating protective materials. If so, Atlas is not just a strange comet, but a mobile machine, unintentionally shedding the leftovers of its own system into space. The thought grows even darker when placed in the history of cometary observation. Never before has a comet shown such behavior. Thousands of objects have been studied over centuries, from periodic visitors like Halley to fleeting interstellar passers-by. All obey the same chemical logic. Only Atlas breaks the mold. If what we are seeing really is evidence of a technological process, then Atlas is no longer simply an icy rock wandering the sky. It could be a disguised spacecraft, or at the very least, an artificial structure that has drifted long enough to collect ice and dust, making it look comet-like. And if that is true, humanity may be forced to rewrite everything we thought we knew about intelligent life in the universe. The anomalies of Atlas have left the scientific community bewildered. And into that vacuum, one name has surfaced once again: Avi Loeb. Loeb, a professor of astronomy at Harvard University, became famous or infamous back in 2017 when he publicly argued that Oumuamua, the first recorded interstellar object, was not just a rock. According to him, it could be a form of alien technology, like a light sail sent from a distant civilization. That statement instantly sent shockwaves through the field, splitting scientists into two camps. those who saw him as someone bold enough to break old thinking, and those who believed he had stepped far beyond the bounds of science. Now, with Atlas, Loeb is walking that same risky path as the data on nickel, iron, and its strange green glow emerged. He did not dismiss it or invoke vague explanations. Instead, he asserted that we must consider the possibility that Atlas is an artificial object, and he went even further, suggesting that it may in fact be the source of the WOW signal detected in 1977. This has thrust Loeb back into the center of controversy. To many of his colleagues, he is a heretic in science, a man planting seeds for dangerous hypotheses that the public could misinterpret and spin into conspiracy theories. But to others, Loeb is a necessary disruptor, a voice pushing science not to lock itself inside its own cautious assumptions. Atlas, then, is not just a challenge to astronomical models. It is also a test of the limits of mainstream science itself. Do we have the courage to consider a hypothesis that is unsafe, but possibly true? Or will we bury it under the label of junk science? For nearly half a century, scientists have proposed many natural explanations for the WOW signal of 1977. One of the most often cited candidates has been interstellar hydrogen clouds. The idea is that the signal did not come from a civilization at all, but was simply a natural phenomenon created as radio waves passed through a moving hydrogen cloud at just the right speed to mimic a narrowband signal. Other theories suggested the source might be a pulsar or a magnetar, the ultra-dense remnants of exploded stars. They can emit powerful radio bursts, sometimes very narrow, making them plausible natural candidates for what Big Ear detected. Yet there's a problem. None of these theories actually fits the data. The WOW signal was unusually strong, lasted exactly 72 seconds, the precise time it would take for a source to cross Big Ear's field of view, and it appeared at exactly 1420 megahertz, the hydrogen line frequency regarded as the universal language of the cosmos, the one any intelligent civilization would understand. If it was just a random hydrogen cloud, why was the signal so sharply focused? If it was a pulsar or magnetar, why did it never repeat? And most importantly, why in more than 50 years of observation have we never heard it again? These gaps make natural explanations far from convincing. Scientists in SETI have thus taken a cautious stance, not rushing to label it extraterrestrial, but also not ruling out that possibility. Avi Loeb has often emphasized, if an artificial hypothesis explains the data better than natural ones, science cannot ignore it. And now, with 3I Atlas approaching the solar system, the chance to compare and test these hypotheses is becoming more real than ever. So what if 3I Atlas is not a natural chunk of ice and rock, but an artificial machine built by an extraterrestrial civilization? First, it would be the greatest shock in human history. For thousands of years, we have asked, is there anyone else out there? If Atlas is truly artificial, the answer would be chillingly clear. We are not alone. Science would have to rewrite the textbooks. Religion, philosophy, politics, everything would be tested. Even our sense of humanity's place in the cosmos could collapse overnight. But the shock would not be purely intellectual. It would raise an existential question about Earth's security. An object capable of emitting a signal as powerful as a nuclear reactor surely wields technology millions of years ahead of ours. And the biggest question would arise: why is it here? Some suggest Atlas may be just a probe, like our own Voyagers, sent to collect data on distant star systems. If so, humanity might be nothing more than one survey target among many. But if the WOW signal in 1977 was indeed a hello, then Atlas could be the next step, a tool of direct contact, a way for that civilization to reappear before us. The question is, do they come with goodwill or with another purpose? Another more chilling hypothesis is that Atlas is a test, a way to see how humanity reacts when faced with the truth. Will we panic, try to shoot it down with weapons, or show maturity enough to engage peacefully? The answer could determine how they evaluate us, as a potential partner or as a threat to be neutralized. Of course, there remains the final possibility that it is all an illusion, and Atlas is ultimately just a bizarre but natural comet. But if it's not, then October and November of 2025 will not be just another date on the calendar. They could become the turning point of our civilization, the moment we cease to be mere observers of the cosmos and become the observed. Are we truly ready for that encounter? After nearly half a century of debate around the WOW signal and the many anomalies of 3I Atlas, the decisive moment is approaching. In October 2025, 3I Atlas will make a rare, close pass, skimming near the orbit of Mars at a distance of about 29 million kilometers. In cosmic terms, that's a blink of an eye. But with today's observation technology, it opens an unprecedented window of opportunity. Humanity's electronic eyes will be fixed on it. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, which has captured ultra-high-resolution images of Mars for years, will be reoriented to record details of this object. Beyond that, ExoMars and Mars Express, two European missions, are also in ideal positions to observe, analyze its light spectra, and measure any unusual signatures in Atlas's surrounding gas. And the story doesn't end there. By November 2025, as Atlas moves deeper into the solar system, ESA's JUICE, Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, launched to study Jupiter's icy moons, may continue tracking its path from a completely different vantage point. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event. Not every generation gets the chance to witness a giant interstellar object coming close enough to be simultaneously tracked by spacecraft from multiple agencies. If Atlas truly is just an unusual comet, the data will solve the mystery, ending half a century of speculation. But if it harbors signs of artificiality, the images and measurements from October-November 2025 could become the first direct evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. The question for us is humanity ready to look straight at that truth? And in all these unresolved debates, a larger question emerges. How much do we really understand about the universe? Or are we merely brushing against the surface of a reality beyond imagination? In many writings and interviews, Avi Loeb often uses a simple image. Humanity is like ants looking at a bicycle. To an ant, it is just a giant, incomprehensible object, impossible to grasp its purpose or technology. Likewise, we, tiny beings on Earth, may already have witnessed traces of an alien civilization, yet lack the knowledge and perspective to recognize it. The lesson here is not only curiosity, but humility before the cosmos. If the WOW signal was truly a greeting, the fact that it never repeated does not make it worthless. A single signal can still change how humanity views its place in the universe. Dismissing it or rejecting it simply because it does not fit scientific norms may be the greatest mistake of all. Loeb reminds us that the universe is 13.8 billion years old, while humanity has only just stepped out of the hunter-gatherer stage a few tens of thousands of years ago. That gap is vast beyond measure. How can we claim to know every possibility? Perhaps the anomalies of 3I Atlas are not accidents, but opportunities for us to expand our thinking beyond the safe confines of what we call natural phenomena. In the great silence of the universe, every signal, every strange object is a reminder. Be humble and listen. The mystery of the wow. Signal for nearly half a century, the anomalies of Three-Eye Atlas and Avi Loeb's controversial hypothesis are now converging on a single point in time, October and November 2025. Then, humanity will have an unprecedented chance to learn: is Atlas merely an extraordinary comet, or the messenger of an alien intelligence? If it's true, this will be the greatest turning point in history, the moment we realize we are not alone in the universe. But it could also be the moment we face a harsher truth, that someone out there is already watching us, and we have no control over it. What do you think? Was the wow signal just a coincidence? Or is Three-Eye Atlas truly the sender of that signal? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to see how this mystery unfolds.